Thank you, Madam Vice President, Excellencies, colleagues. 1 year ago, in Resolution 5329, the Council asked our office to prepare a report mapping the work and recommendations of the Human Rights Council, our own office, the treaty bodies, and the special procedures of the Council in the field of human rights and new and emerging digital technologies, including artificial intelligence, identifying gaps and challenges and making recommendations on how to address them while giving due consideration to the United Nations system-wide work on new and emerging digital technologies. We all experience every day how digital technologies shape our individual lives, societies, economies, social, cultural, and political life, and they determine how human rights can be enjoyed, underscoring how the request from the Council was so timely. It is urgent that we both make use of the immediate opportunities at hand that digital technologies offer, and at the same time tackle the many complex challenges that we face. This is one of the defining topics of our time, which is underscored by the fact that just this year we are moving towards a global digital compact to be agreed in September by member states. Against this background, it's a particular honor and a great opportunity to present our findings on the work of the UN Human Rights System concerning digitization, and we sincerely hope that the report can contribute to further enhancing the positive role that the UN human rights ecosystem can play to ensure that human rights are at the center of all of our digitalization efforts. The number of technology-related outputs by the UN human rights system has already reached an astounding level, and this is an encouraging finding of our mapping exercise. To capture the breadth and the depth of the diversity of the work undertaken, the report maps the work of the UN human rights system along thematic lines. This is intended to easily demonstrate thematic developments and trends, and it also enables readers to quickly find relevant examples for the issues of their interest. One challenge that's worth mentioning in this context is that overlap between thematic areas and mechanisms is inevitable. It speaks to the interrelatedness and the indivisibility of rights and the intersectionality of various topics. And consequently, documents cannot always be neatly placed in one thematic basket. Moreover, in view of the wealth and ongoing development of the material in this area, our report does not index every single relevant output, such as every iteration of the same thematic resolution, and it should not be read as providing an exhaustive list. Rather, the report presents emblematic examples and seeks to bring a bird's-eye perspective that can further facilitate work in this field. The report uses the following thematic baskets. First, a section on governance of the Internet and Internet-based communications. This section pays particular attention to digital divides, undue restrictions to accessing and using the Internet, hate speech, disinformation, and social media governance. A second section covers surveillance, datafication, and artificial intelligence. Topics touched upon in this section include targeted and indiscriminate surveillance, data privacy and data governance, and the various ways in which artificial intelligence affects the enjoyment of human rights. The third section, economic, social, cultural, and development aspects. In this section, the report sketches out work on issues that are central to achieving social and economic justice and the Sustainable Development Goals. This includes expanding work on topics such as education, employment, social security, and health. And this section also points out that economic, social, cultural, and development aspects play a central role in the discussion of digital divides and discrimination more broadly. A fourth section on discrimination, equality, and specific groups maps out how the UN human rights ecosystem has identified and responded to identity-based differentiated impacts of digital technologies, highlighting in particular gender-related problems, impacts on children, racial discrimination, the rights of people on the move, the rights of older persons and minorities, and indigenous peoples. Another section describes the existing work on human rights and digital technology in the field of international security, armed conflict, and new and emerging technologies in the military domain. And while very valuable work in this field exists, the report underscores that more attention needs to be paid in this crucial area. The next section maps the impressive work done by the human rights ecosystem on the role of the private sector, which has an enormous influence in the digital sphere and holds great potential to foster or to flout rights-respecting conduct. And finally, the report also describes the existing work concerning the rule of law and administration of justice. Excellencies, turning to the achievements outlined in the report. One main finding of the mapping is that the UN human rights ecosystem has been remarkably productive, with an impressive body of work dealing with the human rights dimensions of digitalization. The UN human rights system has been responsive to manifold challenges of ongoing digitization of societies, even if gaps and shortcomings remain. This is true for all bodies and mechanisms, from General Assembly and Human Rights Council resolutions to special procedures, the UPR, treaty bodies, and our office, even though there are differences in the uptake and in the depth of treatment of pertinent topics. Overall, the mapping confirmed the relevance and necessity of using the international human rights framework to govern the development and use of digital technologies. International human rights law provides the guardrails that are required to maximize the benefits and added value of digital technologies while reducing and containing their potential detrimental human rights impacts. What is particularly important is that where there are protection gaps, these result from gaps in implementation rather than a lack of established obligations and responsibilities for states and businesses. A human rights lens ensures that necessary actions can be directed the right way, avoiding risks and realizing opportunities to promote well-being. Indeed, the work of the UN human rights ecosystem on digital technologies has made a difference and is having positive impact. The work informs international, regional, and domestic policy, is referred to in public debate around the world, is relied upon to determine obligations and establish guardrails. Courts use the analysis of the UN system. And increasingly, we've been successful in improving companies' applications of the UN guiding principles on business and human rights as the foundation of designing services and policies. And finally, the human rights ecosystem has also been able to often raise urgent concerns when necessary, for example, by sending communications to states and stakeholders. Madam Vice President, Excellencies, allow me to underscore some of the gaps that are noted in our report. Some obstacles have been identified that stand in the way of stronger, more sustainable impact of the UN human rights system's work. And while not an exhaustive list, allow me to highlight three main gaps. First, coordination. The large number of actors and processes in the human rights system addressing issues concerning digital technologies can lead to overlap and at times tensions between outcomes if coordination efforts are not sufficient. Second, access to information. A major obstacle is a lack of visibility and easy access to relevant documents which are currently dispersed across several databases and websites with only limited search functions at hand. The United Nations Digital Technology and Human Rights Resource Hub, making UN documents on tech and human rights available, is a valuable initiative, but will need considerably increased resources to become a fully functional and curated one-stop shop to find such information. Third, and importantly, a major gap has been identified in the lack of detailed and context-specific advice. Currently, there's no clear path for member states or companies to request detailed, context-specific advice on how to respond to technology-related issues in a human rights-conforming way. For example, in the context of legislative processes, as well as large digital infrastructure processes, such a capacity and advice is urgently needed, but is often requested in diverse and ad hoc manners. Allow me to close in highlighting some of the High Commissioner's recommendations, which are aimed at bridging these gaps. First, both the capacity and effectiveness of the UN human rights ecosystem should be increased for comprehensive work on digital technologies. A focus should be on capacity to provide guidance for the implementation of human rights obligations of states and the human rights responsibilities of businesses. Second, and as suggested by the UN Secretary General, a service should be made available by the UN Human Rights Office to provide guidance and expert advice upon request on specific human rights and technology issues to support member states and stakeholders in integrating human rights into the design, the development, the operation, the use, and the regulation of digital technologies. Third, there should be broad discussion to explore and take appropriate measures to improve the coordination between United Nations human rights mechanisms to support complementarity and coherence in the work being done in this field. And fourthly, to improve the information management infrastructure across the UN human rights ecosystem to ensure easy and streamlined access to all of its outputs. The High Commissioner suggests to provide additional resources to enable OHCHR to create and maintain a state-of-the-art digital resource hub, building on existing databases, existing search tools, and the Digital Technology and Human Rights Resource Hub, and in line with OHCHR's feasibility study, which was also presented during this session of the Human Rights Council. We all look forward to the discussion today and tomorrow, and hope that the mapping can be a helpful contribution to further improve the ability of this Council and the UN human rights ecosystem to address some of the key questions of our time. Thank you.